Hey producers, it's DJ Bods back again. In this video I want to cover Deep House in the style of EDX. We'll be looking at my track Hold On To Me, which is off my first album called Element. We're just going to be looking at key concepts today to keep the video length down. So we're going to be looking at the drums, the bass and the leads. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get into Ableton. First things first, let's just have a quick listen to the track. So yeah, as you can hear, it sounds complex and it sounds really engineered, but it's actually quite simple. So the first thing I think we'll cover are the drums. So when you're dealing with deep house drums like EDX, you want to keep it snappy but also punchy. I just used a drum rack here for the main drum loop. So these are just primary drums. We'll start with a kick. So I've got a kick here with a little bit of an EQ, and that's about it. The sample's called Kick Deep Night. It doesn't have much of a tail. It's quite clicky, but it's also got quite good low mid-range quality frequencies, which EDX really likes. That will sit with a very heavy sub bass. Next we got this snap, which is laid with this. I wanted the transient with this. As you can see, it's a very short sample with this longer sample. It's a second clap, and in between I've got an open 808. It's basically just a white noise pitch envelope in operator as the offbeat hat. So that's it for that. There's actually no processing on the channel itself. Next is the hats. So this is what the hats sound like with the drums. That's where you're getting your very, very intense layered 909 sounding thing with the core kick and claps. So we listen to it a little bit more dirty. So we got this kind of acting as a snare, this closed 909, the open on every offbeat. So yeah, so I just took a couple 909 samples, I widened them, push them out to the more to the sides. I've got a bit of reverb automation, you don't need to worry about that, and I've got an EQ. Just getting rid of a lot of those low end frequencies and rolling off some of the very high end. Yeah, you can hardly even hear them. You can hardly even hear what I'm rolling off. It was just unnecessary information in there. So that's it for the drums, guys. It's actually really simple. Next we'll move on to the bass. Okay guys, the next thing we'll cover is the bass. So the bass, of course you have to use massive when you're making deep house, or future house or tech house for that matter. Massive is very powerful if you know how to use it. So this is what the bass sounds like on its own. So yeah, it's very EDX like. It's very rumbly, very rolly. And I used a patch-in massive called Baseball, which is a preset in the stock library of Massive. It's utilizing a smooth square with quite a not very intense low pass filter, as you can see here in the blue. It's also being modulated by an LFO. And you can use these macros to change the filter, and use this to change the resonance on the filter. It's kind of acting as like a bandpass, really. Other than that, I mean, there is a shaper, a parabolic shaper. There's also a sine shaper. in the inserts. In terms of effects, I don't really see anything. So in terms of processing, I have a compressor side chaining it to the kick, as you can tell, see in this routing, to the kick. And it just sounds really and it fits really well with that lead. And then I've got a EQ. It's taking off a lot of that high end to reserve it for the leads. Then I have a CLA bass. And what CLA bass is doing is it's heavily compressing. It's quite heavily compressing the sub. Because in a club scenario or something, you don't want a rumble or fluctuation in volume in your sub frequencies, because it will not sound right. So I am quite heavily compressing it with Chris Lord Alge's bass plugin, and that's it for the bass. Okay, guys, the final key ingredient to making your track have that EDX signature feel is the leads. So let's get on to the leads. I'll talk about the main lead. I used frequency modulation in Serum to create. So in Serum, I'm using a digital waveform called FM. I'm using that waveform to take frequency modulation from oscillator B here, which an oscillator B is what looks to be halfway between a saw and a square. So from there, we're passing both of those into a filter with envelope 2, with no sustain, low attack, a little decay, and we're leaving the filter all the way open to get that real metallic feel. In addition to that, the key to the EDX sound is if I remove this noise oscillator, it loses that attack bit. So you can really hear that glass. It's got a glassy quality to it, and that is the noise oscillator is responsible for that. So I'm using envelope 3 with glass lid 5 wavetable or sample rather, in the noise oscillator, glass lid 5, and I found the pitch, so it was in tune with the normal oscillators, and then I'm using envelope 3 on the level to make it really fast, the glass lid noise, because if you hear it without this oscillator, so if I take this decay back up, it's too long. And then when you add it all in, it just sounds fantastic. And then I'm using an EQ to boost the highs a bit in the effects section. So I also added some processing on this lead channel. First of all, we'll turn them all off to see what they sound like. So that's what it sounds like without any processing. Here's what it sounds like with all the processing on it. So yeah, it sounds pretty damn good with some processing as well, but you have to get the fundamental sound good before you go and process anything. So the first thing we're using is a little bit of over-the-top compression with amount at about 30%. Just kind of gluing it a bit, but also spasticating it a bit. Next we've got an overdrive. So here's what it sounds like without. It just adds some mid-low characteristics, I think. The next thing we're adding is a kickstart to sidechain it, obviously, to the kick drum. After that, we have a reverb. And I turned the pre-delay up a lot on this, so it'd kind of like feel like it's bouncing off wall back at you. I don't know. I just kind of I just liked it, and I stuck with it. and I thought it sounded really good in the final mix down. So yeah. And next, I'm just compressing it a bit to catch some of those peaks, because it's a plucky sound and it does fluctuate a bit. And then that's it. Yeah, that's it for today. It was just a very small, simple tutorial. I wanted to keep it short and snappy, and I'm on a bit of a time crunch. So yeah, I just needed to get something out to you guys. If you did enjoy, hit the like, hit the sub over here somewhere, and hit the bell, and leave a comment with how you think I can improve for the next one. So that's it from me. Have a good weekend.